This video is sponsored by Rocket Money, more on them later. On April 20th, 1999, Klebold and Eric Harris would commit one of the most infamous school shootings in modern history, taking the lives of 14 students, one teacher, and finally themselves. Tragically, this still isn't the deadliest school shooting, but it's easily the most talked about. That's because this attack was planned for over a year, and every time you research it, you find something new. Whether it's Eric Harris creating a model of the school inside the game Doom, pages of journal entries, or hours of video recordings. Because of all the mystery and information surrounding these two losers, they've gained a disturbing cult following that lasted decades after their deaths. In today's video, we're talking about the psychos that tried to do it again. It's no surprise this tragedy inspired dozens of other shootings, some even deadlier, but those stories have already been told. Instead, we're talking about the people who tried to attack the original Colorado school where it all happened, the failed attempts to recreate Columbine. 6 months after the massacre, a 17-year-old Columbine senior was arrested on suspicion of threatening to finish the job. Jefferson County authorities said he was booked on a felony count of inciting destruction of life or property and a misdemeanor theft charge. Bond was set at $500,000. The timing alone, half a year to the day, reopened fear in the community. Deputies reported seizing hand-drawn map of the campus and additional writings. Because he is a juvenile, his name was not released. He was first held in county jail, then transferred to a youth detention center and placed on suicide watch. Withholding his name fueled speculation, and the recovered school diagram made it clear the threat had to be taken seriously. District officials said they alerted the sheriff's office after hearing rumors and increased security on campus. Attendance plunged, about a quarter of the students stayed home the next morning, and by afternoon, roughly half of them were gone. Absences were quietly excused. Classes went on as scheduled, but the day was tense. Staff watched the doors and everyone stayed alert. Classmates recognized the teen from video production class. He had previously worked with Eric Harris and Klebold on school projects. Investigators said there was no evidence of a broader plot. Knowing them didn't make him part of a plot. But being close to the shooters meant rumors spread faster than anything the school could say. As mentioned, this student hasn't been identified due to him being a minor, but it's confirmed that he was somewhat close to the shooters. The two shooters produced several short films as part of school projects, so it's reasonable to assume that the person who later expressed a desire to finish the job might appear in one of those videos. If not, he's likely visible in other casual camcorder recordings, since over an hour of footage featuring the shooters exist. I attempted to conduct my own investigation to uncover this individual's identity, but quickly realized how unrealistic that was. All of the short films have the students' faces blurred, and the unblurred footage turned out to be useless, with only their faces to go off by. There was nothing solid to confirm who they were. However, there is an infamous senior photo of the two Columbine shooters sitting on the bleachers and making handgun gestures. The one wearing the hat is Eric Harris, and the one with glasses is Klebold. You can clearly see 3 other students also gesturing guns. So who are they? After about 8 hours of research, I couldn't find much information on the two guys. Many people on Reddit suggest that the person on Eric's right, wearing a gray crew neck, might be Brooks Brown. Brooks Brown was a Columbine student and one of Klebold's closest friends. He had a rocky history with Eric Harris, and at one point his family reported Eric to the police for making violent threats online. But the two later made up. On the morning of the shooting, Harris told Brooks to go home, essentially saving his life. After the tragedy, Brooks became one of the most outspoken survivors, criticizing how authorities ignored the warning signs about the shooters. He later wrote a book sharing his story and offering insight to what led up to the massacre. That theory about Brooks being in that photo remains purely speculative, since I read that on Reddit. I tried comparing the faces myself, but in my opinion, the person in the picture doesn't resemble Brooks at all, so it remains unconfirmed. As for the other student gesturing what looks like a rifle, I wasn't able to identify who they were. That part of the photo remains a mystery. Finally, the girl sitting next to Dylan and also gesturing a handgun is Robin Anderson. She was a friend of Dylan who helped him and Eric buy 3 of the guns used in the attack. Since she was 18 at the time, she could legally purchase them.
Investigators today questioned one of the girls to find out if she was involved in putting real guns into their hands to a Denver gun show last year, and she says she bought 3 guns, the 2 shotguns and the rifle. They say she told them she made the purchase because the 2 suspects were not 18. Sources say she also told investigators the gun dealer explained to Harris and Klebold how to saw off the barrel of a shotgun. Now, the purchase was technically legal, unless the buyer and/or seller knew that the guns were going to be given to someone under 18. Again, Klebold and Harris were underage at the time.
Robin later cooperated with the police, expressed deep regret, and was never charged. And during my research, I found this interesting photo. This is a prom photo of her and Dylan taken just 3 days before the attack. And no, they were not dating. They attended prom simply as friends. And no, she was not the one who wanted to finish the job. After hours of somewhat meaningless research, I couldn't identify the individual who wanted to finish the job. Since I don't have his name, I can't find information if they're out of custody, but considering this was just a threat from 1999, it's safe to say that this person is freed. Rocket Money is the personal finance app that helps you save money, cancel unwanted subscriptions, and manage your budget all in one place. If you're like me, you've probably got subscriptions that you didn't even know you were paying for, or maybe you just want to get a handle on your expenses. Rocket Money is here to help. Recently, I found out I was still paying for an old food delivery service I never used for almost a year. Rocket Money made it so much easier to cancel. They identified the subscription and canceled it with just a couple of taps inside the app. No more headaches and no more unnecessary charges. And let me tell you, I'm saving up for a new place, so budgeting is really important. Rocket Money lets me create a custom budget that tracks where the money's going. It automatically categorizes my spending and even notifies me when I'm getting close to my limit. If you want to take control on your finances and save money, you've got to try Rocket Money. Head over to rocketmoney.com/morbidforfun or click the link down in the description below to get started today for free. Over 10 million people are already using Rocket Money to save and manage their money better. Once again, to save more and spend less, join them by heading to rocketmoney.com/morbidforfun or clicking the link below. You can even unlock more features with premium. About 6 months after the arrest of the student who threatened to finish the job, another case surfaced, this time not in Colorado, but nearly 2,000 miles away in Florida. An 18-year-old named Michael Ian Campbell was charged for sending a threat over the internet to a Columbine student named Aaron Walton. In this message, Campbell told her not to attend school the next day because he planned to finish what was begun. He used the AOL screen name Soup81, a play on his last name and birth year. The FBI quickly traced the message back to Campbell, leading to his arrest. As a result of the threat, Columbine officials canceled the last 2 days of the semester while investigators confirmed its source. In February 2000, Campbell pled guilty to a felony count of communicating a threat across state lines. His defense attorney argued that Campbell had been caught up in what he described as internet intoxication, meaning he wasn't fully aware of the seriousness of his words. And of course, the court rejected that claim. During sentencing, Campbell collapsed in the courtroom as the judge announced a 4-month prison term to be followed by 3 years of supervised probation and mandatory mental health counseling. The moments turned even more emotional when Campbell's mother pointed at Aaron Walton and said, "You killed him." What? Walton left the courtroom in tears while Campbell regained consciousness shortly after. Campbell served 16 weeks at the Coleman Federal Correctional Institution in Wildwood, Florida. His attorney said Campbell had learned his lesson, was in good mental and physical health, and planned to rebuild his life by returning home to Cape Coral to find work, possibly as a cook, the same job he had while incarcerated. He publicly apologized to those affected by his threats and expressed a desire to move forward. Erin Walton eventually returned to Columbine for her senior year and was described by her mother as extremely excited to be back and ready to graduate. In early March of 2001, only days after the Santana High School shooting in Santee, California, another alarming threat emerged, this time from across the country. Patrick Andrew Smith, an 18-year-old from Walkersville, Maryland, was arrested for sending a series of violent emails that reignited the fear in the community. State police confirmed that Smith had sent a threatening email to a male student at Columbine High School, referencing the 1999 attack there. Despite these connections, investigators found no evidence that Smith had any personal link to Harris Klebold or Andy Williams, the Santana shooter, or any of the previous school shooters whose crimes he mimicked. Around the same time, Smith was also discovered to have sent additional messages targeting students in California. His emails traced to his personal computer warned two teenage girls not to attend school because he planned to finish what Andy started, a direct reference to Charles Andy Williams, the 15-year-old responsible for the Santana High School attack that killed 2 students and wounded 13 others earlier that week. Investigators determined that Smith had used AOL profiles to search for teenagers in the Santee area. After exchanging brief message conversations, he began sending increasingly threatening emails to 2 15-year-old girls, one attending Santana High School, the other West Hills High School, a nearby rival. One of his messages read, "Don't go to school Friday. I liked you, but I'm finishing what Andy started, and this time it's going to work." Another was graphically violent, saying that he would blow her head off and commit intimate acts on her body afterward. The messages quickly spread panic among students, parents, and faculty. Administrators at Santana High School took the threats seriously and closed the school early on March 9th, while investigators from both California and Maryland traced the origin of the emails. Using digital devices, members of the Computer and Technology High-Tech Response Team, a multi-agency cybercrime unit based in San Diego, tracked the threats directly to Smith's computer. Later that night, Maryland State Police, working alongside California authorities, arrested him outside of his home. Smith was charged with multiple felonies, including 2 counts of making terrorist threats in California and additional charges in Maryland for first-degree assault, email harassment, and threatening students under the state's education law. He was held without bail and awaited extradition to California. Authorities and Smith had tried to obscure his identity by routing messages through multiple internet service providers, but forensic experts were able to recover his trail. His arrest came as the community of Santee was still grieving from its own tragedy. Funerals were being held for Randy Gordon, a 17-year-old senior who had been accepted into the Navy, and Brian Zucker, a 14-year-old freshman and aspiring stunt cyclist. May them rest in peace. The last individual we just discussed didn't specifically target Columbine itself, aside from a single threat directed at one student. The larger and more serious threat was aimed at a school in California. However, with this next case, it involved an 18-year-old girl from Florida who traveled all the way to Colorado. In mid-April 2019, just days before the 20th anniversary of the Columbine High School massacre, another young name surfaced in headlines across the nation: Sol Pais, an 18-year-old from Surfside, Florida. A quiet student with a reputation for academic excellence, she would soon become the center of a massive FBI manhunt stretching from Miami to the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. Pais had vanished from her family home on the morning of April 15, telling her mother by text that she was heading to an after-school art history review. Instead, she drove to Miami International Airport and boarded a one-way flight to Denver, Colorado, having purchased 3 such tickets days earlier. No idea why she would buy 3 tickets in the first place if it was just her. To her parents, her disappearance was alarming but unexplained. To federal investigators, it quickly became an emergency. In Denver, Pais wasted no time. She went directly to Littleton, Colorado, where she had previously contacted a private gun seller and purchased a pump-action shotgun and ammunition. Surveillance showed her carrying a green rifle case as she took an Uber into the mountains. The driver later recalled she had no food, little clothing, and spoke cheerfully about seeing snow for the first time. He could not have known she would never return. Back in Florida, investigators discovered what appeared to be an online journal written under the alias Dissolved Girl, a reference to a song by the band Massive Attack. The entries dating from mid-2018 through early 2019 painted the portrait of a young woman unraveling under the weight of isolation, anxiety, and fascination with violence. "I am the face of loneliness and misery," one entry read, accompanied by drawings of knives, firearms, and notes about dreaming of a shotgun. Her writing showed a deep fixation on the Columbine shooters, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. Posts about gun ownership and questions on firearm forums revealed that she had actively researched how to acquire a shotgun in Colorado despite being a Florida resident. In February 2019, her journal returned after a months-long silence. The last few days have been especially painful and tumultuous, which kickstarted me again to start reviewing my plans and getting on with them. Her final entry was dated March 30th, 2019. By the time the FBI learned of her disappearance, the context was unmistakable. The 20th anniversary of Columbine was less than a week away, and a teenage girl obsessed with the massacre had just flown to the same state, purchased a firearm, and gone missing in the wilderness. Authorities issued an urgent BOLO alert, labeling her armed and dangerous. Schools across Jefferson County, including Columbine High School itself, were placed on lockdown. Parents pulled children from classes as helicopters circled overhead. Within hours, the threat dominated national news. For many people in Colorado, the timing felt like a cruel echo of the past, an unwelcome reminder that Columbine's legacy still drew dangerous fascination 2 decades later. But unknown to the thousands sheltering in fear, Sol Pais was already dead. Coroners later determined that she had died by a self-inflicted gunshot wound on the same day she arrived in Colorado, hours before the manhunt's begun. Her body laid undiscovered in the mountain woods near Echo Lake until April 17th. The weapon she had bought legally 2 days earlier rested beside her. When confirmation of her death reached the public, schools reopened, and the immediate panic faded. Yet questions remained. Why had a high-achieving student with no prior record descend into such despair? Could Sol's disturbing post have been recognized sooner as warnings that she was in distress? Her parents cooperated fully with investigators, offering emails and phone records. Neighbors described her as sweet and quiet. Her father, a musician, later declined interviews, retreating from public view. At Miami Beach Senior High School, grief counselors were stationed in classrooms. Administrators reminded students that mental distress often hides behind calm demeanors. She did not strike classmates or teachers as deeply troubled. One report noted words that would haunt those who knew her. Unlike those Pais idolized, she hurt no one but herself. Yet her actions still paralyzed an entire region, closing schools, terrifying parents, and summoning hundreds of officers into the field. Till this day, we don't fully know if she was planning to attack. Some theorized that she was going to on the day of the 20th anniversary. If that was the case, there was a hole in that plan. You see, the 20th anniversary of Columbine landed on a Saturday, so even if she wanted to, she couldn't. Thank you guys for watching till the end of this video. I recently fell into a Columbine rabbit hole about the identity of the other people in that bleacher photo, and I just discovered that a lot of people have threatened Columbine, so I felt like turning this whole thing into a video. So if you guys liked it, like the video if you guys like, and subscribe for more videos. Other than that, if you enjoyed this one, you might like this video right here, where I talk about every YouTuber who became a killer. But other than that, I'll see you guys in my next video. See you guys.